Frequently, you'll find yourself also being asked, in addition to rotating around a certain point on a triangle. So, for example, on this triangle, what we just did, just to refresh your memory, in case you didn't watch the first one, is that we made a copy and we rotated, we made a copy and then we rotated it 90 degrees around point C. Well, sometimes they also ask you to use the origin as your center point. So that's what we're going to do now. And we're going to rotate our triangle that we just rotated a couple of minutes ago. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and we're going to rotate it just for a little variety. See, 90 degrees last time we rotated clockwise, so this time we'll rotate counterclockwise, but this time our center of rotation is going to be right here in the origin. And it's helpful to draw yourself a line of reference from the origin to any point on the shape that you're going to be rotating. I personally just chose C just because that happened to be closest to the origin, so that's just the one that I chose. So now I'm going to use our copy of our triangle that we made our patty paper earlier. I'm going to place it over the top of the image, and I'm going to make a copy. Well, actually, I'll have to turn it this way, and I'll have to make a new copy because there's not enough room on that patty paper. So I'm going to make myself a copy of the triangle, A, B, and C. Don't forget, labeling your points is very, very helpful. And I'm also going to make a copy of my reference line. So we are going to take this and we are going to rotate it 90 degrees around the origin. So since we're rotating it around the origin, it's going to stay put right here at the origin. Counterclockwise means we're going to go in this direction. And I'm going to keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going until my original reference line that I had right here and my new reference line form a 90-degree angle. That's how I know that I've rotated this 90 degrees. See how here I have my original line of reference and my new one, they're 90 degrees. So now that I've rotated this around 90 degrees, it's time to use my patty paper to see where the new one is. So I'm going to lift up here, place my new coordinate. This time I'm going to get 2 tick marks because technically, in case you didn't watch the last video, we'd actually already rotated this particular triangle once. Now we've rotated it for a second time, so we need to put 2 tick marks when we label it. So point A is going to get 2 tick marks. Point C is going to get 2 tick marks. We're going to connect our dots. And just to double check myself, I'm also going to I'm going to draw, since I had my reference line from the origin to point C on my original image before I translated it, I'm going to draw a reference line from the origin to my new point C just to double check and make sure that it went through okay. And sure enough, here we have a 90-degree angle, so I know that I rotated it correctly. I'm going to work one more example for you. What you might want to do is try this one at home and maybe pause the video, take a look at it, try to rotate it yourself, and see if you can do it correctly, and then use my video to check yourself when you are finished. That might be a good idea. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my rectangle ABCD. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and because we rotated clockwise last time, we're going to rotate counterclockwise this time. And I'm going to use as my center of rotation point B. So I'm going to use point B as my center of rotation. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So just like I did last time, I'm going to make myself a copy. I'm going to make sure I label my points correctly, because sometimes when you're rotating, it's easy to lose track of what goes where. Now, since I'm rotating it counterclockwise, it's going to go in this direction. And because the B is our center point, that means that the B is going to hold steady in one spot while the rest of it rotates around. And I know that I rotated it like I should when my original side AB on my original, see AB, so side AB forms a 90-degree angle with my new copy of my AB. See how it's AB? So they form a right angle. So I know I've rotated it 90 degrees. So I'm just going to lift up my paper, write my new coordinates, C with a little tick mark because that means that it's been rotated once, and D with a tick mark. Sometimes this part's a little bit tricky, lifting up the paper and matching it up. Okay, so point D with a tick mark. Point B stayed where it is since it was our center of rotation. And of course, because we rotated A, is now where D used to be. So I'm going to connect my dots and double check myself and make sure I rotated it correctly. And so to check myself, I'm going to see, so I should have rotated at 90 degrees. So that means that my old side AB right here should form a 90-degree angle with my new side AB, which it does. And you can always just double check and see that if another side, like my original side AC right here, also forms a 90-degree angle with the newly rotated side AC. So I know that I've rotated it correctly. Now I'm also going to rotate this around the origin to give you one more example. And you need to have yourself a good reference point. I'm personally going to use, so here's my center. The rotation is going to be the center in the origin. And I'm going to rotate this one 180 degrees, and we're going to rotate it clockwise, just for a little bit of variety. And the origin this time, though, is going to be our center of rotation. So I am going to take my, it's good to have, just like the last example, a reference line to use to rotate your, when you're doing the origin. So I'm going to make a little reference line from the origin just to point A on my newly rotated one. Doesn't really matter which one I use, which point I drew my reference line to. I just chose this one because it was close. So now I'm going to put my copy back on top. I'm going to make a copy of my reference line right here. And let me scoot this out just a little bit so that you can see better. So now, because I'm rotating around the origin,